Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Yamunatira Manachari Yamunatira Manachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
This morning we'll hear from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 30, the activities of the Prechetas, and today text 17. Divyavarsha Sahasranam
Divyavarsha Sahasranam
Sahasram Ahataujasa
Sahasranam
Bhauman Bhokshyata Bhogan Vai
Bhavaman Mokshata Bhogan Vai
Divyanschanu Grahan Mama
Divyanshchanugrahan Mama
Divyavarsha Sahasranam
Divyavarsha Sahasranam
Sahasram Ahataujasaha
Sahasranam
Bhauman Bhokshyata Bhogan Vai
Bhavaman Mokshata Bhogan Vai
Divyanschanu Grahan Mama
Divyanshchanugrahan Mama
Divyavarsha Sahasranam
Divyavarsha Sahasranam
Sahasram Ahataujasa
Sahasranam
Bhauman Bhokshyata Bhogan Vai
Bhavaman Mokshata Bhogan Vai
Divyanschanu Grahan Mama
Divyanshchanugrahan Mama
Divyavarsha Sahasranam
Divyavarsha Sahasranam
Sahasram
Sahasranam
Bhavaman Bhokshyata Bhogan Vai
Bhavaman Mokshata Bhogan Vai
Divyanshchanugrahan Mama
Divyanshchanugrahan Mama Divyavarsha Sahasranam
Divyavarsha Sahasranam
Sahasram Mahataujasa Bhavaman Bhokshyata Bhogan Vai
Bhavaman Bhokshyata Bhogan Vai
Divyamshchanugrahan Mama
Divyanshchanugrahan Mama Divyavarsha Sahasranam
Divyavarsha Sahasranam
Sahasram Ahatojasaha
Sahasram Mahataujasa
Bhavaman Bhokshyata Bhogan Vai
Bhavaman Bhokshyata Bhogan Vai
Divyanshchanugrahan Mama
Divyamshchanugrahan Mama
Divyavarsha Sahasranam
Divyavarsha Sahasranam Sahasram Mahataujasa
Bhavaman Bhokshyata Bhogan Vai
Bhavaman Bhokshyata Bhogan Vai
Divyanshchanugrahan Mama
Divyamshchanugrahan Mama
Divyavarsha Sahasranam
Divyavarsha Sahasranam Sahasram Mahataujasa Bhavaman Bhokshyata Bhogan Vai Divyamshchanugrahan Mama
Word to word. Divya
Divya
of the heavenly planets,
of the heavenly planets
Varsha
Varsha
years,
years
Sahasranam
Sahasranam
of thousands,
thousands
Sahasram
Sahasram
1,000,
1,000
Ahata
Ahata
without being defeated,
without being defeated
Ojasa
Ojasa
your power,
your power
Bhauman
Bhavaman
of this world,
of this world
Bhokshata
Bhokshata
you will enjoy,
you will enjoy
Bhogan
Bhogan
enjoyments,
enjoyments
by
By
certainly
certainly
Divyan
Divyan
of the heavenly world,
of the heavenly world
Cha
Chacha
also
also
Anugrahat
Anugrahat
by mercy,
by mercy
Mama
Mama
my.
Maya
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Lord then blessed all the Prachetas, saying, My dear princes, by my mercy, you can enjoy all the facilities of this world as well as the heavenly world. Indeed, you can enjoy all of them without hindrance and with full strength for 1,000,000 celestial years. Responsively, please. The Lord then blessed all the Prachetas,
Lord bless all the Prachetas
saying, My dear princes,
saying my dear princes
by my mercy you can enjoy all the facilities of this world
By thy mercy, you can enjoy all the facilities of this world,
as well as the heavenly world.
as well as the heavenly world.
Indeed, you can enjoy all of them without hindrance
You can do all of them without hindrance
and with full strength
and with full strength
for 1,000,000 celestial years.
for 1,000,000 celestial years.
Srila Prabhupada's purport. The duration of life prescribed for the prachetas by the Supreme Personality of Godhead is calculated by the time measurements of higher planetary systems. Our 6 Earth months are said to equal 12 hours in the higher planetary systems. 30 days equal 1 month, and 12 months equal 1 year. In this way, for 1,000,000 years, according to the calculations of the higher planetary system, the prachetas were allowed to enjoy all kinds of material facilities. Although this lifespan was so long, the prachetas were given full bodily strength by the grace of the Lord. In the material world, if one wants to live for many years, he must endure the difficulties of old age, invalidity, and many other miserable conditions. Boy, howdy. The prachetas, however, were given full bodily strength to enjoy material facilities. This special facility was given to the prachetas so that they could continue rendering full devotional service. This will be explained in the following verse. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukhaṁ Karoti Vachalam Bhangum Lankayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Namahom Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Divya Varsha Sahasranam Sahasram Ahataujasaha Bhauman Bhokshyata Bhogan Vai Divyangs Chanugrahan Mama. The Lord then blessed all the prachetas, saying, My dear princes, by my mercy you can enjoy all the facilities of this world, as well as the heavenly world. Indeed, you can enjoy all of them without hindrance and with full strength for 1,000,000 celestial years. So there are a couple of things that we can glean from this verse. This is, in a sense, perhaps not one of the more essential verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. In some senses. It's certainly essential because these are the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and this is a blessing that he's giving to these young men. But it's actually moving us toward tomorrow's verse, which actually deals more directly with pure devotional service. So one thing we see is time is relative. It's been, well, it seems like 1,000,000 years, 1,000,000 celestial years since I learned about Einstein's theories of relativity. But I remember, when I was a kid, I got really into, I think in the fourth grade, I was really interested in astronomy. And in the fifth grade, I was really interested in, I think I was really interested in chemistry in the 4th grade, and I was really interested in astronomy in the 5th grade, and I got into physics, whatever physics they're going to teach an 11-year-old, or you can read from a book. There wasn't, I don't think we had physics at Shirley Avenue Elementary School, but I had books because my parents knew I was interested. I was a curious kid, so they got me, books about physics that were okay for elementary and junior high school kids. And I remember hearing about this whole business of how time is relative, and if you travel faster than light, if you were to travel faster than light and you came back to Earth, not only would your friends and parents and brothers and sisters not be there, but like 130,000 generations of your family would have already been, some outrageous number. So, the idea that time is relative shouldn't be completely foreign to us, nor should it be to those of us who are getting close to 30. We may remember that when we were 7 or 8 years old, that 3-month summer vacation, that went on and on and on forever. And by the time the first day of school came, we were almost kind of ready for it. There was some excitement. You got new clothes. I remember the new clothes would be, they'd be laid out at the foot of my bed. So we'd got new clothes and had a new teacher, which was at least an adventure. Sometimes they weren't as much fun as you might anticipate. I remember in the 6th grade, we showed up on the first day of school, and our teacher was a woman named Mrs. Herbs. And she looked very familiar to us because 2 years before, we had had her for the 4th grade. And the classes moved relatively intact in the primary and then whatever they call the upper elementary grades. It was pretty much the same kids every year. A few changes here and there. But this was Miss McGee, whom my friends and I gave a really hard time all through the 4th grade. And I can imagine when Mrs. Herbs got her roster, and she saw Richard Wells, Ernie Tillinghast, Jimmy Ackerman, Bill Reed, and all these kids, she just thought, oh my God, whole year of these kiddos. And so she actually came up with a system of demerits where we had to keep track of our infractions. And once we got 10 demerits in one, then, so she was ready for us, in other words. She was loaded for bear. So those summers, they seem to stretch out forever. And then, of course, the school year goes on forever. And God, by the time summer comes, you are so ready. But then I remember when I was teaching at Hawaii Community College. At that time, I was in my 50s. And I had 3 months off for the summer, which is a luxury I hadn't had for a long time because I was teaching part-time at several different colleges. And in order to patch together a living as an adjunct or part-time faculty, you just teach as many classes as you can get, including in the summer. And when I got a tenure-track job, I thought, okay, I know the drill. I'm not going to have any summer classes. I don't need that. I could use that little bit of extra money from the summer classes, but the part-timers needed more. So I would actually get the summer off. And I remarked how much more quickly those 3 months from mid-May to early August passed than when I was a kid in the 4th grade or the 5th grade or whatever. So we even have some sense and now, as I'm actually kind of getting close to 30, well, actually closer to 80, now time seems to just really rip by. It's all of a sudden, it's Kartik again. Wait a minute. I thought we just did that. All of us, and then we get that every 2.5 years or so, we get that little spacer month, Purushottam month. That's when I actually have a birthday. I was born on Ekadashi during Purushottam month. So I'm actually like 28. So when I talk about getting close to 30, it's not real, it's only half a joke. So time, we see how we have this idea already of how time can be relative. And here we see, that in different parts of the universe, time seems to pass more slowly. Just like if you rotate something around an axis, if you have something going the same speed on the say 12 inches rather than 2 inches from that axis, it's going to seem to take longer for it to get around. It's going to appear to move more slowly. So we have these different calculations of time in different parts of the universe. We see this in Krishna Lila, right? In the Brahma Vimohana Lila. Lord Brahma's thinking, okay, let me check this kid out. He seems pretty cool. Everybody's really excited about him, but and maybe he's the Supreme Personality of God, maybe not. Let's check it out. So he decides to play a trick on him by snatching his friends, his cowherd boyfriends, and the calves that they were taking care of at the time. And when Krishna comes back and sees that they're gone, he just expands himself into all the cowherd boys and all the calves. And when they go back, all the moms and all the cows are actually nursing and bathing and taking care of Krishna. And they're astonished at how their love for their own calves or their own sons is increasing more than they could even imagine. It just kind of blows their minds, and no one understands. Even Balaram, because he had to stay back that day for some birthday-related business. He was it took him a while to figure it out. Now, Lord Brahma, and this went on for a year in Braja. For Lord Brahma, it was just a moment. And so he pulled his trick, and he said, okay, now let me see what kind of chaos I've caused by my mischief. And he goes back and he saw Krishna playing with his friends, and the cows, the calves are frolicking in the pastures and into the forest and things. And he's like, what? And then, Krishna turns them all into Vishnu Murtis, which further confounds Lord Brahma. And then he realizes, oh, okay, so I thought I was cute. I thought I was quite powerful and cute, but Krishna appears to be even more powerful and cuter. So he offered these wonderful prayers, 50-odd verses of prayers. Something I do during Purusha. In Kartik, I chant Gopi Gita. It's 19 verses. We get it through it in 17, 18, 19 minutes or something like that. But for Purushottam Mas, I chant the Brahma Stuti. It's like an hour. That's a real commitment every day. And someone was telling me that, I chant chapter 15 of Bhagavad Gita. And I was thinking, maybe I can shift in my old age. So we see that how time is relative in this verse. And then we also see how the Lord is blessing these princes. He's granting them really long lives. And we've got the word bhoga twice, just in one. You're going to get to enjoy all kinds of enjoyment for a long time, and you're going to maintain your bodily strength. How did I miss that blessing? So you're going to be able to use that to engage in full devotional service, and so you'll be able to make even greater progress in your spiritual lives than might ordinarily be the case, and we'll see a little bit more about that tomorrow. So you read this and you think, oh gosh, Krishna is blessing these princes that they that they get to enjoy all kinds of things. You know, they get this beautiful heavenly damsel that they're married to. What's her name? Amlocha. And they get to enjoy all kinds of good stuff. The best ice cream, you know, the best lassi, the best rasamalai, everything. Music, you know, like you wouldn't believe. As one of our more prominent politicians might say today, like nobody's ever seen before. And how is that? That they get to enjoy, and they don't have to get old and creaky. When they go on for 1,000,000 celestial years practicing their spiritual lives, and they don't have to get old and creaky. So this, he says, this is a special facility. This is my mercy. And that's kind of the main thing that I see in this verse, that whatever we get, this is Krishna's mercy. I'm thinking yesterday about the differences between the Uttama Vaishnavas, the Madhyama Vaishnavas, and the Kanishta Vaishnavas. That the Uttama Vaishnavas don't have proper discrimination, but in a positive way. They see that everybody's engaged in serving Krishna better than I can. Everything, it's all good. For them, it actually is all good, because it's all Krishna. It's all Krishna's mercy. And the Kanishta Vaishnavas, they don't have proper discrimination, but, you know, in a sort of, in a problematic way. Because although they may have some sense of God, it's a very narrow, miserly sense of God. You know, God is just like we learned in my church, or, you know, my sangha, or whatever, my mosque. And everyone who's not a member of that, they're all outsiders. So they have no sense of who's actually devoted to the Lord. It's just my little club. Very, very narrow. This is the vision of a kripana, someone who's very, miserly. The opposite of kripana is brahmana. Prabhupada said, we were living on Maui, and I remember the moment I heard this. We were in our little kind of loft apartment that we were renting from a friend of ours, kind of subletting from a friend of ours in Wailuku on Maui. And I was listening to this lecture by Srila Prabhupada, and he said, Brahmana means liberal. And so Brahmana has this very broad sense of, you know, what's spiritual. And we learn from the second canto of the Bhagavatam, and there's a sense in which everything is Krishna, not just spiritual, but everything is Krishna. We're given a universal form for kind of spiritual beginners to contemplate, and we have a way of seeing how Krishna is in everything in the material world. The rivers are the veins of his bodies, the sun and the moon are his eyes, the mountains are his bones, the trees are the hairs on his body, etc. It's a way of seeing God everywhere, kind of a pantheistic sense. But actually, this is not just pantheism, this is panentheism, because there's also that same sense that the Absolute is aloof from all of that at the very same moment. It's not like he has to switch back and forth. It's like we talk about multitasking, which is a mistaken idea. We're not actually able to do 3 different things at the same time. Instead, we're constantly switching channels as we're doing it. So it's kind of it's just a way of being distracted. In fact, I remember I tried this when I think it was 10. One Saturday, Mom and Dad were out probably shopping or something, doing chores. And I was at home, and I thought, let me see how heavily I can load my senses and what that experience is like. So I was reading a comic book. I had the television on. I had the top 40 radio station on, and I was eating Fritos. And that was the only time I actually deliberately tried that. I just thought, yeah, this is kind of crazy. Got a little sense of how crazy I am, I guess. So, what the Kanishta bhaktas are, their problem, their lack of discrimination is that they just don't have this broad vision. Father Richard Rohr's name comes up sometimes in conversations among the devotees because we're kind of close to New Mexico, and a lot of devotees are discovering this gentleman. Some friends of mine turned me on to him several years ago, and I was just blown away by his broad vision. This is the vision of a mystic. This is a real Brahmana that that he sees his universal Christ everywhere, even in something as apparently exotic as Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And last Friday, I spent the evening in a Sufi Sangha. I was at a Sufi gathering at the home of this Darvesha who lives in Long Beach. And he's a friend of one of my devotee friends who lives in Los Angeles, who's from Iran. And so we shared our perspective of our perspectives on where the commonalities are between at least Rumi, or at least some of Rumi's poetry, and Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And it was a really kind of wonderful exchange. And then you've got the Madhyama Bhaktas, who actually do have a proper sense of discrimination. They see the absolute truth, the Supreme Lord. They see the devotees. They see those who are innocent, those who haven't yet been fortunate enough to receive bhakti in their hearts. And they see those who are inimical, kind of 4 broad categories. And they behave differently with each, right? Prema, Maitri, Kripa, Upeksha. This is one of the Nabyogendras, I think, speaking. I don't remember which one. I still don't have them all sorted out. They love the Lord. They make friends with devotees, Maitri. Kripa, they're kind, compassionate, merciful to those who haven't yet attained bhakti. And they gauge how that kindness might be best expressed for different people. They listen when they speak with them. They don't just like spout off scriptures. You're not that body, give up your wife, go to the mountains, hear your japa beads, chant Hare Krishna for the rest of your life. They find out kind of where they try to meet them where they're at, and then kind of draw them in, which generally isn't hard because Krishna is Krishna. It means he draws everything in like a black hole. And then for those who are actually inimical, like those new atheist guys, they neglect them. They don't have any time for them. They're not going to bother with them. Prabhupada used to tell us, not to preach to people who were too intoxicated, because they're not really going to leave an impression on. They're not going to remember the great points that you made because they're just, they're too buzzed. They may not even remember having had a conversation with us. So they just neglect those. Although sometimes we've seen devotees engage some philosophy professor here and there in debate or something like that. So in one corner, you've got all the professor's students cheering every time he scores a point against Maharaj. And then, all the devotees are in the other corner and they're jaying every time Maharaj scores a point. It's like a fencing match or something like that. And it's good for, it's good for showing the devotees how to understand the flaws in materialistic arguments. But you're not really going to change the professor's mind or any of his little students. I remember seeing a video once, some years ago, of one of these new atheist philosophy professors, Daniel Dennett. And the title of the video, this is on YouTube, was The Magic of Consciousness. And Dennett's point ultimately, so here he is, this kind of burly philosophy professor with white hair and a big white beard. And he's running around, he's walking around in this auditorium, kind of wowing all these freshmen and sophomore students with his, magic of consciousness, the little dog and pony show. But ultimately, the point he was making was, just as magic is an illusion, so is consciousness an illusion. So who has time to talk to someone like that, who's so firm in his belief, in his shraddha, right? He's got this strong faith in the fact that nothing exists. That there is no such thing as consciousness. Well, where do those ideas come from? How are you? What's processing those ideas? He's not going to hear that. So they ignore them. So ultimately, we kind of strive for that vision of the Paramahamsa, of the Uttama Bhagavat, the highest devotee, that ultimately everything is, we see that even in the second canto of the Bhagavatam. Everything is Krishna. Everything is Krishna in the sense that everything is constituted of one or another of Krishna's energies, right? Either his internal pleasure potency or his external energy, what we think of as inert matter, jada. And then there's this kind of weird thing in between, which is us. Everything is Krishna's energy, and Krishna is simultaneously identical with and aloof from all his energies. That's that panentheistic idea, which we call Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, which, as it turns out, wasn't conceived of by Jiva Goswami, although he I think he coined that phrase. It wasn't conceived of by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, wasn't even conceived of in the Srimad Bhagavatam, because that chapter where we see that is called Purusha Sukta Confirmed. Purusha Sukta is part of the Rig Veda, which is the first of the 4 Vedas. So this is actually the oldest idea in the world, the oldest philosophy in the world. This is the original philosophy. So, we want to develop that kind of vision that everything is Krishna's mercy. Everything that happens to us is Krishna's mercy. When we encounter a reverse, we think, oh, this is Krishna's mercy. And in that way, maybe we can become a little equipoised, where we're not constantly battered around. Srila Prabhupada, he went through so much just to get to the point of being able to leave India. We've seen that in his in Satsarup Maharaj's Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. He was living in Delhi. He got gored by a bull. He had to go out and beg for money to buy paper to print the volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam and to print back to Godhead. He would go to tea stalls, I guess like our equivalent of coffee houses or something like that, to sell people back to Godheads and talk to them about Krishna consciousness. And then he had 2 heart attacks on the Jaladuta. It didn't discourage him a bit. He just kind of like doubled down on his determination. And when it seemed like something wasn't happening, he told us that he would go to this India steamship office every once in a while and check out when the next opportunity to leave would be, and then he let it go. And when his visa ran out, he just went to Canada for a little while until everything got squared away again, and then just kept going. And then the illnesses that he encountered, the setbacks he encountered because of the silliness of his disciples, he just kept going. Just like a bulldozer. Out where I used to live on the Big Island, you'd have these, where a lot of us lived is kind of old lava fields that they're maybe 300 years old or something like that. So they bring in these big D9 bulldozers to to kind of like level the land so they can build a house and have a yard and stuff. But Srila Prabhupada just kept going like that because he saw everything as Krishna's mercy. And then when he got all kinds of facility, when he had actually probably millions of dollars to deal with and thousands of disciples, Prabhupada would boast. We have these Mercedes vans. They drove from Germany to India, and they were traveling around India in Mercedes-Benz vans. Srila Prabhupada thought that was pretty cool. Why? Not because he was all that, but because Krishna is very merciful. Krishna is somehow or other responding to his effort, just like Damodar responding to Mother Yashoda's effort. She kept coming up 2 fingers short with the rope, right? Those 2 fingers signify effort and grace. And she made the effort, beads of perspiration on her forehead, the flowers falling, her hair coming undone, and she's just like still trying and trying. And they're cowherds. There's no shortage of rope in her household and certainly in her neighbor's household. Because she's the queen, they'll bring whatever rope she asks for. And she keeps coming up 2 fingers too short. And ultimately, Krishna graciously allows her to bind him. And he's not really bound by those ropes. He becomes bound by her love. I think it's Krishna telling Uddhava in the 11th canto that he becomes bound, that he becomes bound to the devotees' hearts. They become bound to his lotus feet by chains of affection. So that's, we want that kind of life. Now, will we need 1 million celestial years of the devatas to get there? Oh, Lord, let's hope not. But it's there by Krishna's mercy, if that's what we need. Krishna will provide whatever it is we need, and that could be our vision. That whatever's happening, Krishna is saying, okay, this is what this character needs right now in order to make spiritual advancement. With Bali Maharaj, it was getting arrested, and sent to hell. And Srila Prabhupada writes in one of his purports in the 8th canto that these things happen. He cites Queen Kunti as well. And these things happen for the future glorification of those Vaishnavas. So, ultimately, we want to develop this vision that everything that comes our way is Krishna's mercy. Okay, I think it probably overstayed my welcome. Any discussion? Kirtaneshwara Prabhu.
Thank you, Maharaj. It was beautiful talk.
My question is regarding the Kripana and the Brahmana, and you said this statement, Brahmana means liberal. Then you brought up his father, Richard Rohr. And I was thinking, sometimes we find, when you're distributing books, you find some Christian or some person or another religion, and it's like it's a reality check because they're feeling, wow, this person is happier than me. Seems like they're more devoted to God than me. And you find sometimes people of other traditions that are spiritually advanced. And so we can say that what I find much of the time is that when I look into other traditions, I can agree with the philosophy, because the philosophy usually comes to love for God, devotion in different ways. But many times we don't, we have so many different theologies. When the Bhagavatam has a theology and Christianity has a theology, and there's so many different types of theology. So in that liberal vision, how are we to address that, address that, they have a theology, we have a theology, and kind of rectify that with, the essence is the same. How are we supposed to, combine all that and have that proper vision?
That's a big question. And an essential one. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur addressed this in one place by asserting that, he says, whenever I go to someone else's place of worship, someone's mosque or church or whatever, what I see is that they're worshiping my Lord, but in a different way. But then we also need to understand, well, what is the theology? I mean, we talk about a Christian theology. There isn't. There are hundreds, at least, of Christian theologies. Sometimes when I was driving between campuses, I would listen to this station from Orange County. It was an AM station, Christian station. And there was a block of a few hours where they'd have some shows where they actually explored different Christian philosophies. And oh man, some of these Christians disagree with each other so bitterly about these really fine little things, you know, how many angels can you fit on the head of a pin or something like that. And I thought, well, that's really interesting because, well, we're kind of the same way. You know, we've got, even then when I was listening to, we had these, we refer to them as camps, kind of like different factions among the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And, you know, some people think that bhakti is inherent in the soul, and they vehemently disagree with those who say that no, bhakti is actually granted by the guru. Or, you know, have we fallen from Krishna Loka? You know, were we, are we taking a break from the rasa dance to be worms in stool? And other people think that's insane. And I thought, okay, well, that's fine. That's going on with them too. And I read a book about Buddhism by Houston Smith. In the 20th century, he was one of the foremost religious studies scholars. Also a very kind of a broad-minded person, sort of a kind of a universalist person himself. Although he said, you know, although he had this broad vision, he said, I was born as a Methodist and my body will be buried as a Methodist. But he actually had a broader vision than that. And there's this little book about Buddhism that I have. And he makes really clear, Buddhism's not a monolith. There's a whole bunch of different Buddhist philosophies. A lot of Buddhists will tell you there is no you, because they have this part of their philosophy is anatta or anatma. Anatta in Pali. Hridayananda Maharaj is kind of like Sanskrit with a New York accent or something, you know. And some people say there just is no you. But other Buddhist scholars say, well, when Lord Buddha taught about anatta, he was actually saying what you are is not what you think. So sometimes some people will say, oh, Buddhism says there's no God and there's no soul. And other people say, no, actually what Buddha was saying, don't worry about that yet. You're so busy suffering. Let's take care of that first and then worry about the other stuff later. And there's so many, and they fight bitterly. Some of the factions among the Buddhists fight bitterly among themselves. There used to be what you call Mahayana and Hinayana Buddhism. The great vehicle and the lesser vehicle. Well, what used to be known as Hinayana is now known as Theravada Buddhism, which is more kind of agnostic or atheistic than the Mahayana, like the Tibetan Buddhists. So there's all kinds of things. And so what we want to understand is, what is your actual goal? What's the actual goal of your religion? You know, what are your practices? And as Srila Prabhupada would say, are you following those practices? God says, thou shalt not kill, but you're eating cows. How's that religious? So what is their practice and what is the actual goal? And the essential, and you usually find this mainly in the mystic strains of the different religions, Sufism and Islam, the Kabbalists in Judaism, and you know, the people who kind of like follow the desert fathers and mothers of the Middle Ages in Christianity, and probably in other religions that I don't know, that I haven't read much about, Shintoism or whatever. There's probably some mystical strains, because you always got these monks. You know, even in Buddhism, you've got people who are referred to as yogis who go live in caves and meditate, like our yogis, like Vedic yogis. So, you know, we want to find out what is the essence. And there are religions, so-called religions, that are false. You know, I'm not going to name any of them, but we know a lot of them. But even Christianity, this pious Christianity that a lot of people are professing, including some of our leading politicians. I came across on Facebook it's just those little reels that come up in the middle of your Facebook feed every once in a while. And there's this woman named Amy Hawke who's calling out these, people who are, she calls them white Christian nationalists, and it's not Christian. And then she names these politicians, starting with, the ones you can imagine. And she just says, you guys aren't really following Jesus, because he taught this. When he was asked, Rabbi, what's the most important teaching? He says, the first commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, strength, mind, and soul. The second commandment, which is very similar, is to love your neighbor as yourself. And so people like that will come. There's a Democratic politician in Texas, James Tallarico. He says, my grandfather, he's a state representative running for U.S. Senate right now, I think. And he's also studying to become a Presbyterian minister in seminary while he's serving in the Texas House of Representatives and running for Senate. Busy man, I guess. And, he said, my grandfather was a Baptist preacher, Southern Baptist preacher. And he said, the whole thing is love God, love your neighbor. So if that's the goal, then we can honor that. And if it's not, then, we can see how receptive they might be to something more. Share a little bit with them and kind of feel them out and see how it goes. But we don't have to take their association very closely. We'd rather have the company of more broad-minded people. And we find that even among ourselves. Some devotees, they have their understanding is very fundamental, and we can respect that because that's important for that stage. We don't want to diss it. Don't want to give them too much side eye. And if you have a broader vision, you just kind of share that with others by your character. How did Lord Chaitanya convert the Ashananda and the Mayavadi sannyasis? There was argument, but it was his character, his effulgence, that actually changed their hearts, not so much the argument. That's one way we can approach it. There's so much going on. Oh gosh, I think I'm way out of time. Okay, thank you all so much for your attention and your patience. Grantha Raja Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.